Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I hope you are doing very well today. I'd like to talk to you about a few more titles in the Criterion Collection that perhaps you might be interested in getting, or at least consider getting, in the context of the current Barnes & Noble Criterion sale that is going on right now. So it's it's the beginning of July 2019, and so the sale is, I believe, going on in earnest. And so I'd like to share with you just a couple more titles, or a few more titles, I should say, and we can go from there. Now, I'd like to focus today on a few titles that are directed by the person who directed this film, The Lodger. Now, this is spine number 885 in the collection, and this is from 1927. This is a silent film, a black and white silent film, and it's directed by Alfred Hitchcock. And it is considered the first suspense thriller that Alfred Hitchcock directed. Now, for those of you who don't know, Alfred Hitchcock is a British filmmaker who made a number of films in Britain in the early part of the 20th century. And then later in his career, so around 1940, he made the move to Hollywood, where he made a number of films in Hollywood in the United States, some of which are considered masterpieces to this very day. And so he is known, I think, for making a lot of suspense thriller films. And he is known by the moniker or nickname, the Master of Suspense. Now, he has a number of films in the Criterion Collection already. As far as his pre-1940 so-called British period, that is the period referring to which he made films in Britain, so the earlier part of his career, there is, of course, The Lodger, which is a silent film, as I mentioned, with Ivor Novello. And it is a very sterling example of kind of suspense film. It's not, how should I put it, it's probably not considered his greatest work, but it is, for its time, quite a technical achievement, and there are many visual tricks and flourishes that populate this film that add to the tension and also create the well-founded reputation that Hitchcock was to enjoy and perhaps still enjoys today. That is a master technician, but also, I think more fundamentally, a cinematic artist of the highest caliber. And so we have The Lodger, so spine number 885. Incidentally, this disc also includes the 1927 Hitchcock film Downhill, also with Ivor Novello. So I would recommend this if you're interested in Hitchcock work. Then there is this film, which is from 1934. This is spine number 643. This is The Man Who Knew Too Much. The Man Who Knew Too Much. So this is the earlier British version of this film, because as you know, this film was later remade by Hitchcock in the 50s. This stars Peter Lorre, and it's a kind of thrilling, compact thriller. It's compact, but it's amazing how much ambition and audacity its plot has, because it seems to have a kind of globally ambitious plot, if you know what I mean, for a film that is otherwise very compact, very tight, and has quite the pace to it. So I love that. I love the fact that it has a grand reach to it, but at the same time it feels very and I mean this in a good way. It feels very small scale at the same time, which makes it, I think, very relatable. So this is The Man Who Knew Too Much. And then this is an earlier Hitchcock film. As I say, it's from 1934. So, however, we already see the master craftsman in many ways very creatively he is engaging with the medium of cinema in a way that is very exciting and bold. And there are even some moments of experimentation in terms of sound, in terms of visual tricks, all for the purpose of heightening the tension and the excitement and the suspense. So we have here a great early example of Hitchcock and his British thrillers, so The Man Who Knew Too Much. Then we have, let's see, from 1935. This is spine number 56. This is The 39 Steps. So this is perhaps one of the greatest Hitchcock films. It is so great because it establishes so much of the Hitchcock touch, if you will. But it also establishes a lot in terms of the thriller genre. It establishes a lot in terms of flourishes that we will see engaged by Hitchcock in later pictures. So in many ways it might be considered like a prototype, if you will. Things like the MacGuffin and the Man on the Run, the Innocent Man on the Run, and the like. But I think more so than being considered like a prototype for films to come, I think on its own terms, it is a rip-roaring, zigzaggy type of film in that it goes not from point A to point B, but it goes from point A to B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all over the place. It goes all over the place. It's quite haphazard, and it's quite chaotic, actually, in terms of where it goes. It goes quite randomly, and seemingly so, into some areas. So it feels almost episodic, and characters come and go. So it feels almost like we're watching short bursts of adventure that are linked together by the main character. But that's okay, because it still amazes me just how well it all hangs together in a way that feels still like a story that has a clear through line. Granted, if you step back, it's amazing how random some of these plot threads go, but at the end everything seems to be a kind of cohesive unit. So this is amazing. And I think it comes down to the fact that while there's all this chaos going on in the world of the 39 Steps, ultimately it is about the story of this man trying to figure out the truth of this particular matter. And I think it's that core story that we are so engaged with. And that never changes. That's the constant. That's the constant that is surrounded by many variables. And I think it is that combination which makes this very dynamic and ultimately such a satisfying work. So the 39 Steps. Then there is 1938's The Lady Vanishes. This is spine number 3. Now this is a kind of supercharged thriller that is also light and frothy, but also at the same time very grounded in its potentially serious tone. It's at once a comedy and a thriller. It's a mystery. It also feels almost like a whodunit. And it has surprises and a wittiness and a certain charm and effervescence and a romance and everything you'd want in a British Hitchcock film. It's here. And it shows off a kind of prowess that is undeniably genius. So this is The Lady Vanishes, spine number 3. Incidentally, this Blu-ray also includes the film Crook's Tour from 1941. It's not a Hitchcock film, but it does feature the characters of Charters and Caldecott. So if you know the film The Lady Vanishes, you'll know those characters. The duo in the film are very funny, charismatic, witty duo that appear in this and Crook's Tour. So it serves as a nice kind of maybe supplement or serves as a nice kind of supplement. It's a good film, Crook's Tour, don't get me wrong, but I think The Lady Vanishes, for my money, is just I think a supreme masterpiece. The Lady Vanishes from 1938. So with that, those films from Hitchcock, the early British films from Hitchcock that are included in the Criterion Collection, if you're interested in those, of course, they are worth getting, or at least considering getting. But let me now give you some other films that you might be interested in if you like those Hitchcock films. So these are just a few suggestions, and this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some other spy, thriller, mystery films that might be of interest to you. So these are also in the Criterion Collection. So the first film I'd like to mention here is from 1940. This is Spy Number 523. This is the film directed by Carol Reed. It's called Night Train to Munich. Night Train to Munich. Now, this is a film that also stars Margaret Lockwood and Rex Harrison. So if the name Margaret Lockwood seems familiar, then it's familiar probably because, among other things, she was in the film The Lady Vanishes. And so we have that kind of connection. Also, the film Night Train to Munich was written by Sidney Gilliat and Frank Launder. And if those names sound familiar, you recognize them as the people who wrote the screenplay, or at least credited as writing the screenplay for The Lady Vanishes. And also it has a kind of thrilling or thriller aspect to it, which is very reminiscent of Hitchcock films. But of course we're talking about a film by Carol Reed, so it's a great thriller in and of itself, in its own right. Night Train to Munich. It is a very wide expanse of a British thriller, a kind of escapade thriller. So if you enjoy those sorts of British thrillers, then I think you will really enjoy Night Train to Munich, again by Carol Reed. And this is from 1940, Spy Number 523, for your consideration. Next is Spy Number 376. This is from 1941. This is the film The 49th Parallel. Now this is from Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. And this is another British thriller. It's set in World War II era, but it has a very unique twist to its tale. And so that makes the film quite complex in terms of its what it expects the viewer to do, in terms of how the viewer will form its allegiances with the particular characters in this film that form the central aspect of the drive of the narrative. But I think also immediately it serves as a very taut, tight thriller, suspense thriller with some warm moments but also very cold moments as well. It is also a kind of adventure film that is filled with a lot of high tension and very dramatic set pieces. It is also very episodic, so it has that kind of epic feel, but is also very intimate in terms of its dealing with characters and giving characters time to grow. And also in terms of plot, it has a very linear, easy to follow plot on the one hand, which is remarkable given how there are so many elements and set pieces and episodes that take place that occupy this world, the space that Powell and Pressburger have created in the 49th Parallel. This is a remarkable film, and as I say, very complicated. It is almost shocking in terms of how complicated this is and the kinds of allegiances this film expects us, the viewer, to make with its characters. I marvel at how shocking that aspect of the film is. And so if you're looking for a kind of thriller, it's sort of a wartime thriller that has a lot of nuance and a lot of complications to it, then The 49th Parallel is certainly a film that I can recommend to you. Now, this is a DVD only, and so I'm not sure if that is worth it to you, but just in case it is, this DVD, Spy Number 376 from the Criterion Collection, 49th Parallel, for your consideration. Next is Spy Number 375. This is also DVD. This is from 1946, and this is directed by Sidney Gilliat with Alastair Sim. This is Green for Danger. Now, this is from, as I say, 1946. This is a mystery thriller. It's almost like a whodunit, or it is a whodunit, I think. So it's a mystery thriller whodunit with a central performance by Alastair Sim. It's also got light touches, comedic touches. It also has some dark moments to it as well. But that's to be expected with this kind of British mystery thriller type of film. And so Green for Danger is, I think, very entertaining, very fun, and very clever. It is quite clever in terms of its construction. As I say, it's a mystery thriller, but it has a kind of, I don't want to say locked room mystery element about it, but it does take place within a certain confined environment. So rather than be like a rip-roaring mystery adventure thriller that crosses boundaries of many countries, like the 49th or like Night Train to Munich or The Lady Vanishes, or has a kind of episodic nature to it, like The 49th Parallel. This film feels very confined within a certain landscape and a certain set of characters, which is, I think, apropos and quite nice with respect to this mystery thriller genre, and also which makes it very easy to follow and thus very entertaining and engaging and quite fun. So, Green for Danger, this is the film by Sidney Gilliat from 1946, Spy Number 375, for your consideration. And this is a DVD, so please bear that in mind. But if that's okay with you, highly recommend it, again, for your consideration. Then there are some other films that I could recommend that are thrillers, spy thrillers, mystery thrillers, comedy thrillers that are in the Criterion Collection. Again, this is not exhaustive, but if you're looking for that kind of film, then these three titles might be worth your attention. You might know them already, but just in case you don't. The first one I'd like to show is from, let's see. This is Spy Number 57 from 1963. Stanley Donin's film Charade with Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant. So this is a kind of comedy thriller. It has some touches of romance to it. It feels like a champagne cocktail of a thriller, and which makes it so fun and delightful. I think by virtue of the fact that it has such a great cast in Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant. It's really great. It's fun, it's exciting, it is very, very entertaining, incredibly entertaining. And so I think this is one that I could strongly recommend in that sort of thriller, comic thriller vein, if you will. So, for your consideration, Spy Number 57 from 1963, Charade. Next is also a comic thriller in the similar vein as Charade. This is from 1980. This is directed by Ronald Neame. Hopscotch. Hopscotch with Walter Matthau in the central role. Now, this is such a wonderful treat. It's a kind of spy thriller. It's a kind of comedy. It's a film about one-upsmanship among agents or spies. And it's a fun time. It is such a fun time because it takes all the elements of spycraft and chase, and it turns it on its head in a way that is very clever and also very innocent. And I think the ultimate word here is fun. This film is so much fun and so delightful and very funny in many places. And I think it has to do quite remarkably so it's down to the central performance by Walter Matthau here, who's really quite brilliant here. He's always brilliant, but I marvel at how commanding he is, his screen presence. And he is very suave and very smart and intelligent. And he is so fun to follow, and you sympathize with him and you want him to succeed. A very likable character. And he really centers this film. And you've got all these surrounding characters, of course, in the narrative. It's really great. It's a really great film and quite clever in places. So if you like this kind of comic thriller, fun entertainment, then I can strongly recommend to you Spy Number 163, Hopscotch from 1980, for your consideration. And then if we were to talk about these sorts of thriller films, spy thriller films, they are so oftentimes very light and frothy and almost champagne cocktails, but also they can be quite dark and very almost brooding and quite menacing in many places. And even the lighter films, the quote-unquote lighter films, have these moments of menace, I would argue. Well, if you're looking for a film that is of a spy thriller genre that is very cold and hard-edged, I think you'd find a lot in the film The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Spy Number 452. Now, this is a film directed by Martin Ritt, and it's based on the novel, the great spy novel by the great novelist John le Carré. And this stars Richard Burton in a really down and dirty, rough, gruff, and cold and icy and mean performance that has hints and moments of warmth and humanity. That's what makes Richard Burton such a great performer, and he delivers and then some in this film, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Now, this is a what a great film this is. What a great film. It's got tragedy, pathos. It has a clever plot. It is so clever. It's almost, it's one of those clever plots that you really have to sit down, at least I do. I have to sit down and think, what's going on here? And that is trademark of the kind of story that we're dealing with, the spycraft world of Jean le Carré. And we have a world that is cold and unforgiving and unwelcoming. And we have at the center of it, Lemus, right, the Richard Burton character, trying desperately to do what it is that he is asked to do. And that is the story that's at the heart of this film, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. And believe me, things get very complicated, very, very complicated along the way. And so what you're going to get here is you're going to get a film that is about the world of spycraft. It's about deception. It's about betrayal. And it's about doing one's duty and what that really means. My goodness, what a great film this is. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. So if you like this kind of spy thriller, this is from 1965. So this is a little bit later than the films that I've showcased before, except for Hopscotch, of course. That was from 1980, and then Charade is from 1963, I suppose. But you are getting a really great spy thriller in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold for your consideration. And Jean Le Carré novel, too. I highly recommend it for your consideration. Okay, my friends, let me end it there, and I hope that was in some ways interesting for you. I'm sure that there are more films that I could have spoken about, and so if you want to mention others, please feel free to do so in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about these and maybe other films in the Criterion Collection that you think fit the bill in terms of spy thriller, comic thriller, mystery thriller, that sort of thing. I've just focused on certain mostly British films from the 30s and 40s, but I've also focused on other films from the 60s and also Hopscotch from 1980. And so, but if you have any other ideas or any other suggestions, of course, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And as always, please enjoy the Barnes & Noble sale, and if you want, please share with us the titles that you ended up getting. I would love to hear what you have to say and what you have purchased. And also, thank you very much to all of you, and thank you and welcome to all the new subscribers. Welcome. Please feel free to leave comments, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. And for those of you who have not subscribed, please, it would mean so much to me if you wouldn't mind subscribing to this channel and leaving comments, because that's the best way for me to get to know you and to hear your thoughts and your recommendations and your likes and dislikes and your favorite films and your interests and everything that you have to say about this great thing that we call cinema. So please, if you are interested, please feel free to subscribe, and please feel free to leave a comment below or on this video or any other video. It would be really great to hear from you. Okay, my friends, that's it. So until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Until we meet again, my friends, cheers.